guys, it's Jenny. Welcome to my channel and welcome back to part 7 of my Making a Webtoon series. So in part 6, I started working on Nero's character design sheet. In this episode, I'm going to finish up the line art and start rendering him. I'm currently working on his jewelry, accessories, and hand tattoos. I am really digging his tattoos and little details of his character design. I mentioned this in my last episode, but I'm definitely going to go back and tweak some of my other characters' tattoos because I feel like it needs a little more detail. It needs a little more pizzazz. Thank goodness it's Friday, May 30th at 6:26 a.m. I spent about 40 minutes this morning brainstorming how I wanted to create Nero's bracelet and ring, which would act as sort of like a conduit for him to use his essence as threads. Kind of like Lubok, I think that's his name, from Akame ga Kill. It's funny because around that time is when I was thinking more about what weapons Nero would have, and then I watched that anime with my husband and then that character popped up and I was like, okay, so there's definitely some utility to using threads of sorts. Again, playing with tattoos as being part of how an enchanter can use their magic, because it helps them kind of like store it and focus on certain parts of their body to harness magic. Wanted to play into that in my magic system and have that be how he's able to just like pull threads from his energy field. And I did want to go and refine the other tattoo designs that I have for my other characters, because they're a lot more plain in comparison to Nero's, and I know that I am going to make it a little bit more difficult for myself having to repeat some of these patterns over and over and over again, but tattoos are a great form of self-expression, so I will take some time to kind of make them look a little more flashier for my other characters. All I have left to do for this character design sheet, I need to start coloring Nero. I also need to color the weapon. I have to write some blurbs on the weapon and his accessories, and we should pretty much be done after that point. And that's one more character design sheet done. I'm gonna switch gears and do a little bit of editing on my Making a Webtoon series video that's gonna be uploaded today, hopefully. So let me switch gears, try to get some work done before my shift starts. In between working 40-hour work weeks, working on art, editing, I'm just always busy. Editing takes so much time, but it's definitely something that needs to be done as a content creator. So I try to carve at least an hour a day when I am working on uploading a video, just so that I try to get my uploads out on a pretty consistent and timely manner. After making some progress with editing and recording a voiceover for part 6, I am jumping back into my character design sheet for Nero, and I am now ready to start coloring. I worked on pulling together a general color palette for him prior to this segment of the video, just to save myself some time, because sometimes I have to tweak things and mess around with the values, which can take a lot of time. Rather save you guys the trouble of watching me brainstorm and just jump right into the meat and potatoes of coloring. I felt like a nice emerald green is very fitting for Nero. Also, when I look at my other characters, I get so much like Power Ranger vibes looking at them, because they all have like a primary color that represents them. I would describe Nero's hair color as being like a very dark burgundy. I am now working on coloring his bracelets and also coloring his weapons. Something new that I did for shading is I'm blurring it out with a Gaussian blur just to soften those edges. And I really like the way it looks. So I'm still trying to figure out my rendering process. Rendering is kind of intimidating, but it is a journey, and it's nice figuring out what I like, what works, what fits my style. As for working on the actual Essen crystals of his jewelry, I just copied and pasted something I did previously for Celine's sheet to save myself a little bit of time. And yeah, gotta say the sheet's looking really good. I really love the way his chakrams came out. I feel like I really popped off with Nero's design, which is why I really need to go back and just add a little something to my other characters. Mostly their tattoos. I like the way their weapons turned out, but need to tweak their tattoos just a little bit. Nero's character design sheet is finally done, and now I have to shift gears because during this segment of recording, I'm actually prepping to fly back to my hometown to visit my family, but also the biggest reason of them all is because I bought tickets to see Stray Kids a while back, so I didn't want them to go to waste. I'm only going to be back home for about a week, so I don't have to pack too heavy, thankfully, but it still requires some time, and of course I gotta figure out which outfits I bring that I can get the most use out of. And of course my dog Bonsai, him being very nosy, he just has to be in my business all the time. Since I will be attending my first ever K-pop concert, I really wanted to come prepared with my makeup and just come up with a cool outfit for that event. Good morning. It is Monday, June 2nd, officially 6:10 a.m. Pretty early this morning, I was woken up by the sound of strange noise coming from outside. And then I realized pretty quickly that it's raining, and it hasn't rained here in El Paso in several months. Coming from a place like Florida where rain is secondary to the intense humidity that happens pretty much year-round, I was really surprised and honestly kind of forgotten how rain and a little bit of thunder sounded like, so that was kind of a nice surprise to wake up to this morning. I'm feeling pretty tired, feeling pretty sore. I bought new adjustable dumbbells during the weekend, copped them for a good price, so I got a pretty good pump in the last couple of days, and my body is still feeling it, which is nice. I'm not too sore where I can't move or that it's uncomfortable to exist, but I'm definitely tired as a result. So I feel like I've done a lot of art this weekend. I've also edited a decent amount of videos that I'm posting on my platforms such as Instagram and TikTok. Kind of wanted to take a bit of a break today to work on some writing. I don't think I've actually done any legitimate writing for my Webtoon series and my making a Webtoon series thus far, so this is something a little new and different. Anyway, that's what I got planned for this morning. In terms of what other drawings I want to work on or art pieces, I don't really know. Alright, let's get started on some writing. I'm gonna kind of talk about my process and what I'm writing about, but as a little precursor to what it is I'm doing, I am scripting out, I believe, episode 8. I was stuck for a while on how I wanted to progress because I was kind of nearing the end of it, and I think I figured out how I'm gonna wrap up episode 8 and start the next handful of episodes. So all right, let's get to some early morning writing. So now it's time to move on to some writing. I use Google Docs primarily because I'm able to edit files offline, which is really nice when I am traveling, flying, or just wanting to get some work done but not having internet access. Eventually, I would like to transition to something else that doesn't share storage with my emails in Google Photos because I am nearing that cap, but for now, this has done the job. When I outline, I try my best to include as much relevant details as I possibly can, along with dialogue. If I have something in mind specifically that I want a certain character or characters to say. The way I write is a mixture of creative writing and incomplete sentences. Again, I'll capture details if I need to that I feel I want to include in certain panels, but I also don't want to get too caught up in like structure and grammar too much. If I'm really crunched for time but I want to get some writing done, I will bullet point the outline for that particular episode. And then, of course, when I have time, I'll flesh it out a little bit more later. So I was working specifically on episode 8 during this recording, and I was pretty stumped. It was kind of a head scratcher because I was having issues on how I wanted to proceed with the pacing. I wasn't sure if I wanted to continue it the way that AMP's been paced so far, or if I was going to do a bit of a time skip, which I don't particularly like doing because I feel like it can get a little confusing if you overdo it, and I also like steady pacing when it comes to storytelling. Originally, I was going to keep the pacing for episode 8 the same as I had so far for AMP, which is kind of like a linear fashion, because I wanted to show the world building through the use of technology, specifically Celine using tech in the world of Cosmora. But I realized that I could still make this happen if I did a bit of a time skip to propel the story forward to the climax of episode 8. But that was something I was able to figure out once I created 2 separate timelines on what would happen if I kept the storytelling linear versus jumping ahead. Seeing those 2 decisions branched out made it a little bit easier to make a decision. The only concern that I have right now is the fact that episode 8, 9, and 10 are a little bit dialogue heavy for a reason. I think the conversations happening between Celine and Akira's teammates, aka the Illustrious of Faction 7, are kind of needed because it gives more context to the plot as well as the personalities and the political conflict happening between their country and a rival country. But this is something I may have to tweak and condense just for brevity, and it's something that I will have to come back to at a later time because sometimes you just got to take a step away from what you're doing so you can come back refreshed and have a better perspective on your work. I think it goes without saying that writing involves a lot of patience and brainstorming, so whatever ideas that I do have that are flowing, I try to write down everything and then decide later what I'm keeping and what is just gonna get archived or I'll just delete. Writing takes a lot of research, especially when you're world building. I like to pull a lot from reality as well as taking inspiration from things that I really like. Of course, you got to conduct a lot of research, and I'd also recommend interviewing people in real life that have a lot of knowledge in a particular subject that you're trying to look into.
So for instance, Akira is a leader, one of many leaders in my story that's in charge of a magical military. So during this part, I was asking my husband questions about the army, such as how they salute higher ups, things of that nature, because I don't have a lot of knowledge on it, but I wanted to pull aspects from real life just so that there are parts of my story rooted in realism, as realistic as it can be in a world where magic exists.
Dang, writing dialogue can be so hard sometimes.
But again, I want to exercise my creative freedom when I feel like it. I think the best types of world building combines fantastical elements that feel otherworldly, but also has elements that's familiar to the readers and things that exist in real life. Something else that I do that helps me a lot when I'm trying to work through difficult scenes that I'm just having trouble writing out or figuring out the dialogue for, I tend to come up with my best ideas when I'm pacing around my room and speaking as my characters out loud rather than sitting and typing. I don't know why, but for some reason moving really helps the creative juices flow better. So when I feel like I am on the brink of something and I start to do that, I will record myself just talking through different dialogue ideas or different ways I can tackle this particular outline. That way, if I do come up with something great or something doesn't work, I can just move through it. I don't have to take a break to write or edit my thoughts. I'm kind of just spitballing it. I'm capturing everything that's happening in that moment, and it's just happening in a more free-flowing manner. Doesn't disrupt my work process. And again, I feel like this really helps for myself. I try to do this in my own, the privacy of my own room and comfort, so I'm not getting disrupted. Do it in a place where no one can just barge in and judge you for talking to yourself. But hey, we creatives, we're a little quirky. We have to do things that work for us and other people might not get it, and that's okay. Anyway, you guys, I hope you enjoyed episode 7, part 7 of my Webtoon series thus far. I hope you guys are taking care of yourselves. I hope you will come back for part 8, as well as other types of art videos here on my channel. But yeah, that's gonna be it for today. Hope you guys enjoyed. Thanks so much for joining me, and I'll see y'all next time. Take care, y'all. Bye!